Sorry if there's wind noise. That's a 360. The other videos prior yesterday were over there, that way, a mile or so maybe. And that little, in the middle there, that little pop-up hill top is where I went to, so it wasn't really that far. And then over there, again, the butt end of Newberry Park, and then all that is Dos Vientos, which they're like right across the and where I am now, I think it's just Conejo Valley open space that connects directly to Santa Monica Mountain recreational area that connects, to all the way to Santa Monica, whatever. That's an equestrian area space there. Looks very nice. Looks like a very nice place to ride horses, especially. I don't know. It's nice though. Nice and open. All these. Nice open run too if you get around running. Anyway, up over that would be the Conejo Grade, and then that is Lynn Road transitioning into where the drop down, like right there, drop down less than a mile away to the back way to Oxnard and all that. And I said in the other video that the mental hospital was converted into Channel Islands Community College, but I checked and it's actually like state university, state college. So I guess it'd be like outranks a junior college, not as ranky as a university. Maybe like Sac State, I don't know. Whatever. But California resident high school graduates that don't take advantage of, and now I'm preaching, don't take advantage of cheap, good, basic general ed education available in California, in my opinion, that then go into college debt because they skip that. Man, they're taking the hard route. Oh, there's the water tower. See, so a little bit to the right of that, that's where we lived in Newberry Park, just a little to the right. So we would go up into the cul-de-sac and up into the open space and hike to the water tower, walk to the water tower. It was like a gravel road up to it. That evil house up there, judgmental me, I'm pretty sure that wasn't there in the 70s. Can carve into, I don't know, man, it's so weird. You got money, you can not knocking money. It's a tool, like a gun. Very apt to be abused and not ethically used and all that. I don't know, man. My freaking spine is screwed up. That's my problem. Is that I'm not me. And I'm just so, oh man, I'm just so wanting to physically be me. Side note, bitch, here is VA community care. Man, you're just a number, and they just don't. Pardon my infantry language. They don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. Pass you on. So I'm just frustrated, so frustrated because they made me worse, like life-changingly worse than who I was. And I'm trying to get back to that and maneuver within a system that is just fucked. I guess I'm harboring some anger, which in no way will manifest itself violently ever, so just to note that. Wow, can you see all the yuccas up there? This is almost, if you take out the bigger mountains, it's almost Kansas-y. I'm just spinning and spinning. Almost Kansas-y. That's not a compliment, nor is it a criticism. It's just a feeling. Me hiking up there. All right. We're all the same. That's my belief. We're all the same. We're just all equations of artist, designer, criminal. Artist, try to do what you want without hurting anyone. Designers, try to do what someone else wants without hurting anyone. Criminal, you don't give a shit about hurting anyone. The whole goal is to try to be an artist as much as possible without doing the jump to being a criminal. That's what these mass shootings are. It's these people that don't know how to reconcile that you can't just have what you want, and they leapfrog and jump to, well, no, I'm not a criminal. I'm really an artist. I'm just doing what I want, but they forget about that they're causing harm. And most artists are not artists, they're designers. They're not solving their own problem, they're solving someone else's problem. why being an artist is such a challenge, is because you're facing yourself in trying to without doing any harm, do whatever it is you really want to do, whether it's you, one person, or two people, or a group, whatever. If you're doing your own thing and it's not harming, you're in the artist realm. And when you start harming, you're in the criminal realm. And when you forget or get sidetracked for money or just lack of integrity or just ignorance or fear or whatever, and you think you're doing your own thing when you're really doing someone else's thing, you being you as the person or the group, or however you're organized, you fall into the designer realm. And there's nothing wrong with being a designer as long as you're aware of it. In fact, you can even flirt with being a designer artist if you're okay with solving someone else's problem and you're trying to do it your way but still solving their problem. You're kind of right on that liminal area of you're a designer because you're solving someone else's problem, but you're doing it your way, and not just your way, but you're benefiting yourself and whosever problem it is you're solving without doing harm. You're like at the top of the ethical designer category, but frame bracket. None of that's a good way to say it, but. And hence, this is why parents, doctors, everyone who's in a power position, power like money is dangerously satisfying, and you forget, you don't humble yourself when you're teaching and realize that it's not about you, it's about the student. Or if you're a parent, it's not about you, it's about the kid. Or if you're a doctor or a nurse even, which, by the way, nurses do have power, not in regards to doctors, but in regards to patients, they sure as heck do. And when you intentionally wield that power, it's harmful. When you unintentionally do, well, it's collateral damage. That's not as bad, but it's still not good. Every single kid every single patient, every single student, if they're there, they're doing their part. Yeah, it's best if they're there mentally, physically, and all there, but if they're there and not harming, they're there, anxious, waiting to soak up real parent stuff and real doctor stuff, and real teacher stuff that is actually worthy of being soaked up. But a lot of the time, maybe not in most, but a lot of the time, like they're just either intentionally or inadvertently being crapped on, made to feel that they don't have power in the good sense. That's a problem, man. When my spine is doing its thing, it just, I don't know. I feel like I'm being mean, but I'm not. It makes me just way too serious. So actually in school, my take on education is it's always going to be a three-part problem. That's all it is. It's how can you educate yourself, meaning solve your own problems. How can you solve whoever's problem, the teachers, whatever problems are there. How can you do that? And how can you do it in a way that doesn't harm? Like, don't interrupt the class if that's not how the vibe's going in the class. If it's, whether it's goofing off when you shouldn't be goofing off, and actually I think you should be goofing off at least a third of the time, but just not within the well, here, each class that's not an art class, I'm just thinking out loud, but your school day when you're still a kid, so before you get out of high school, it should be a third of the day you should be allowed to be solving your own problems. As long as you're not harming anyone, you should be able to do whatever you want. And a third of the day should be focused on solving someone else's problem, namely the teacher giving you the problem or whoever, whatever. And a third of the day should be about understanding and practicing what not doing harm is, which is basically recess. Yeah, so outdoors or indoors, it's a recess. It's a do whatever you want, as long as there's not conflict. But we don't do that. Another thing I noticed when I was substitute teaching for 3 years in Tucson, and curious about maybe wanting to, if I didn't have to take care of my mom once a year for a month or whatever, curious about a full-time art teacher position. And so I researched all the curriculum and all that the district actually puts out. And they mandate that you teach, that you get across certain points, but they don't mandate how you do it. So all these worksheet crap and stuff that art teachers do, and other teachers for that matter do, that think you have to do way more testing and way more worksheets and way more punishment. All that is, a lot of that is just misread by teachers thinking they have to do it a certain way when they don't, and they're doing it because it's been done that way before, and they want to just status quo their way through it. Man, I'm on a total rant. The thing that really bugs me about art teachers in the K through 12 and beyond, junior college too, I don't know about university level, maybe, probably, is that art teachers that get hired, once they get hired, they sit on that position. There aren't that many openings, and they just sit on it. Most of them do status quo stuff that parents that don't understand art, meaning that they don't realize that what art really is about the student or the student or the group of students, if they're working as a group, are in a true art class with a true art assignment. It's not an assignment because it's self-assigned. But most parents, most teachers, most students want the status quo of do it like before, do what's expected, where the whole, by definition, you don't know what art is until you do it. So you can't, I mean, you can have principles, you can get those across, but the actual art itself, the artists as an individual or as a group, whoever, are the ones that determine what it is. So if you're doing a worksheet in an art class, you're not doing art. You might be learning some little part of art, like something about the materials or something about composition and all that. That's parts of it, yes, that's true, but if you aren't, by the end of the first day, considering yourself as a student, considering yourself to be an artist at that point, just an ignorant one, which is great, no problem with that. But if you're not, by the end of the first day, considering yourself an artist trying to figure out this stuff, the teacher's off. And most art classes, most of the students, by the end of the whole term, don't consider themselves artists. So what was the term for? Further hardening the status quo. So by the end of the first day, first week, very towards the beginning, the whole class should be feeling like we're artists. And that rarely happens. And I think this isn't a rip on any art teachers that I personally know or know of. But ones that have actually done that, like for their whole class, is like single-digit percentage, meaning most don't do that or even approach that. They say, do my assignments, and if the administration, the board, whatever is saying, has expectations that don't actually fall under the definition of what art really is, which means, again, if the student hasn't defined the problem in total, or at least if the teacher hasn't made it a collaboration, in other words, hasn't predetermined what the problem is, but works with the students to determine equally or less equally what the problem is with the students, then it's not art. It's art. It's art in quotes. It's design. And if it's supposed to be, there's nothing wrong with design per se, if I'm using that word right. If it's design, if that's what it is, design. But if you're saying or teaching it as art and it's design, that's not moral. You're inadvertent at best. You're inadvertently, very kindly, in a nice way, crushing souls. all the star art student, star quotes, whose work is shown. I mean, if you're not going to show every student's work, don't show any of it. Because the quote worst art student, who's actually being an art student, who does work that is not impressive, but they're being artists about it, that is a higher good, a higher accomplishment than an art student that is not learning art. And that's not to blame the student, because the student is the student. That's to blame the art teacher. Side note, any class can be an art class to the degree with which it's a collaboration or an outright allowing the students to define what the problem is that they're solving. So if you're in a biology class doing the teacher's experiment, if you're all okay with that, well, okay, that's in the design, possibly art realm, because you're all collaborating. But as a student, you obviously don't know as much, so in a way you're being pulled along. But to the degree that you, as that biology student, determine within the structure your own experiment, that's where it enters the realm of scientist as artist. And again, the goal is to become an artist in the respect that you as a couple or you as a group or whatever are the one that has the what is the word? Not power, but maybe it's kind of power. You're the one that has the agency. You're the one that is in control, and not in a harmful way, in a good way. Again, when it turns harmful, that's crime. You know. So if you enter the class with a gun and shoot everybody down, obviously that's a crime, that's harm. It's really blatant and easy to understand. But if you're a kid and the teacher gives you one of their pencils to use and you break it, that's still a crime. No, you shouldn't go to jail. No, you shouldn't. It's not a big deal. It should be pointed out. And that conflict should be resolved. In fact, that right there is an entry point into conflict resolution. Real easy one. The kids that are so lost to the point where they become adults and go in a class and shoot people, they never got the simple. They never got the simple conflict resolution. There's somebody's yeah, I don't know. Again, it's my back, man. I start bitching when my back it's not my back, it's my spine. Namely the supraspinous ligament between the 2 and 3 that had a slight tear, that because no one would help me figure it out within the VA or the VA community system, ultimately they all told me the wrong thing to do, and instead of resting and letting the slight tear of the ligament heal, ultimately, with all the missteps, bad information, and with my always always dumb willingness to take whatever this is the solution information and go too far with it, that ultimately that little tear tore all the way across. And so there's no supraspinous ligament connecting my T2 and 3. So now I'm trying to get muscles and tendons to step in and solve the problem of that non-existent ligament. And ligaments, in terms of stability and all that, outrank muscles and tendons. So it's like it's just like I'm fucked. I got a little hillside. Pretty awesome, actually. Right across this little dip. The perspective is so flattened, it looks like it's right there. Like I could reach across and touch it, but it's like 100 yards away. And there's Boney. It looks like you could just jump from there to there. And that's a mile or two dip jump. Art budget. I don't buy it. You don't need an art budget. You don't have anything. I guess it's going to be conceptual. But it's still going to be. And it could still be, you can still teach all the right principles. And it's not going to be just conceptual, because anybody can walk out anywhere and get I guess probably if you extend it literally an infinite amount of art material, maybe it won't be the not status quo, the conventional kind, but what the hell, man? You're not, this planet, people aren't here to be conventional. They're here to not do harm. Yes, that's worthy. Don't do harm. But conventional, that's a choice. Man, you should be able to be, as long as you're not harming, you should be able to do your thing. Republicans are too mean. Democrats are too conventional, I guess. Libertarians are great in theory, but ultimately, they don't. Ultimately, even though I think people are basically good, the bad. Yeah, and even though there's courts to make up for conflict, people, the bad side of people jumps too fast into harm. So, for example, with the environment, it's like it's too easy for it to all of a sudden be too late. Like you can't, once they're gone. gone, they're gone. Once it's destroyed, it's destroyed. So, I don't know. I guess I'm just an idiot. It's my back though, my spine. Right, that's. I mean, I feel so bad for people that have situations medically, physically, that it takes up so much time and energy and pain and all that, to where their whatever their reality is just an ongoing challenge. See if I can find a spot, like picnic tables and stuff up here, all places for your horse to tie up. How's it going?
Good.
How was it?
Huh?
How was it?
Oh, nice.
Is it all downhill that way?
Oh, well, going back it will be.
Oh, that's good. So did you start down there?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh.
We'll try the horses.
Nice day though, huh? Nice day for a rant. I'm an idiot. Oh my God. I just can't believe in 1 second I fucked up a self-inflicted wound to my back. And then believed that people would actually help. Where if I hadn't have gone for help and just done nothing and let months and months go by and have the pain go away, it would have been the smaller ligament stuff healing itself. But I made the dumb mistake of actually, but I was ignorant. I didn't know what it was. And then I actually asked for help, and they two nurse practitioners, one physician's assistant, two neurologists, 3 chiropractors, 2 physical therapists. All of them gave me the wrong information. None of them said, well, maybe it's a damaged, and I was pointing, every single time I pointed exactly where it was. Put my finger on the spot. It's right there. I'm doing the stuff. Yeah, I'm getting stronger and more flexible. I've always been flexible, but it's still there, and I think it might even be getting worse. And it just, in slow motion, got worse and worse and worse. And nobody, not one of them, ever considered it could be a ligament. And I'm ignorant me. It took me, this was 2020. June of 2020. It took me more than a year to figure it out myself, and by that time it's like I'm fucked. Nobody would even hands-on examine me for more than a year. Closer to 2 years. When I kept saying, it's right there, my back's dented in, there's something wrong. And then it was like a few months ago, I finally noticed that actually the space between those 2 spinous processes, the bumps on your vertebrae, hey, there's something actually missing there. And why am I so way more flexible and unstable than I should be right there at that intersection point? They want to think they helped and send you on, or send you on thinking they helped when they didn't even attempt to understand. Which again, it comes back to, it's like parenting and teaching and being a patient. It's like each student, each patient, each kid is unique. And if that uniqueness of point of view and situation is not recognized and encouraged to flourish, and worse, stomped on either intentionally or unintentionally, or not even stomped on, just by lack of true caring. It's just like everybody's ultimately, yourself is about yourself. And if the whole society is saying, well, you really should value status quo, subordinating yourself to power, going for money, and there's nothing wrong with money, whatever it is that makes you feel like good, that actually isn't innately good. It all just multiplies to the point where ecologically the U.S. is what, like a quarter, I don't even know what, 5% of the world population, and producing a quarter of the negative consumption results. That number's off. I forgot what it is, but no, I lost my train of thought. Oh, to where like we think we're, as a country, we think we're we think we're being good, and we're really just like happily consuming, not tracing those decisions back to saying that actually, if we're that little world population doing that much consumption, we're ecocidal. That's that. And then the other one, like is we're warmongers, and that's not, as Biden would say, that's not hyperbole. That's like an actual word. Warmongers, like we support that. We like that. We're nice people too. So the fact that we're nice people, though, that doesn't if you're doing damage worldwide ecologically and conflict resolutionally, meaning like since I've been alive there hasn't been an ethical war, if there is such a thing, yet we wave flags and consume the hell out of what's available. So it's like, what? There you have it. 44 minutes. This is not a screed. So if I post this, and if it's on Facebook and ever pointed out that, look at this negative, violent person, that's not me. I've never even been in a fight. I don't know, man. It's all ultimately it is what 3rd Platoon Sergeant First Class Boucher. Side note, but it's important, a black guy, which, by the way, in the company that I was in, I think it was probably a 3rd black, which is more, and that's all guys, that's more than, way more than, population-wise, than the general population. And there's so much wisdom there that actually it's what am I trying to say? Anyway, we were at NTC National Training Center, Fort Irwin, California, High Desert, training, and I was in headquarters platoon in charge of the CP command post. And he was a sergeant of the guard that night, and he popped into the CP, which was 2 armored personnel carriers, butt to butt with a tarp over between the two. So it was like this long tunnel of a CP, and that I was in charge of that. But he was a sergeant of guard, so he was making the rounds. And he popped in, and so we talked for a while. And I asked him, so what the hell is what is the point of it? What is the point? The philosophical point. And he was the funniest guy in the company, and he was a 3rd platoon sergeant, so he always stood out in front of the platoon in formation, right? One of the four platoons. But he was just funny as could be, but also every kind of maneuver, every kind of thing, it was always 3rd platoon. If it was at company level, it was 3rd platoon that took point, and he had one of his squad leaders that always took point, breaking it down that far. But he, which is to say that his ability to keep the morale of literally, he's the platoon sergeant, but to keep the morale of literally the whole company, keep the morale up, yet still always be serious enough to always offer in words and action his wisdom, and it was never in a holier than thou type way. It was always in a calm way, whatever. Anyway, I asked him, so what is the point? Well, life, what's the point? And and I still remember it, and he's not the first one who said it, but it has stuck with me, and I think it's true, is the point is life is what you make it. So all the beautiful people and all the people that got dealt the worst possible hand, it's still what you make it. Which doesn't mean other people shouldn't help you. In fact, you can't make it without other people helping you. But it's still you. It's still you. Which comes back to the artist. where the conflict there is that there were soldiers, specifically infantry. So it's like, yeah, their whole mission is to harm. Ultimately, it's to harm. So how do you reconcile that with? That's why you can't be an artist soldier. There is no art of war, because it involves harm, intentional. But it exists. Society, especially in the U.S., the military, it exists. It's there. So that's already set up. So how can and all veterans, all soldiers are like viewed as good. So how can that not be comforting to a soldier? In fact, soldiers mostly think they're doing good, so and they don't have the responsibility for the harm. Because they're it's policy, and they're not responsible for it. So there's this weird. So comes the horses. I don't know. I'll just shut up and let the clicky horses go by. Probably shut up. I turn it upside down. How's it going?
How are you?
All right. Nice day, huh? Anyway, none of that, probably all of that feels like complaining, and I don't mean any of it as complaining. It's what it is. It's make out of it what we want. I'm just hyper frustrated about my physical situation because I've never had problems with physical situation, and it's like not only pain, it's like life-changingly, I'm not me. So it's like I don't. And I did it to myself, and then no one would help, and then with my ignorance and trying to figure out, no one would help. I mean, they gave me the wrong information. That made it worse, and then I went with it and tried to diligently do it, which made it even more worse, to the point where my whole life is on hold, and not in a good way. And it's not a pulled my back. It's not that injury, which I know everybody's. I don't want to sound like I'm bitching about people that are trying to be nice and say, "Oh yeah, I had a back injury." And that's nice to try to be nice, but that's not what it is. Ay, ay, ay. And then this is actually kind of funny, because in like the mental health at the VA. They're there to help, and so I went and saw the person, and I'm like, 95% of my stress has to do with trying to maneuver within the VA, more pointedly within the VA community care system, and just like talking about it with a social worker within the VA, it just adds another layer of like, really? That just adds more stress. And actually she was very nice and all that, but like, you go in to meet her and it's like hand you worksheets to fill out. Like, well, funny, like school. Here's your do the worksheet. Not like, hey, I see you have a problem, let's figure out what it is. Oh, it's just funny. It's funny. C'est la vie, that's what it is. That's life. Such is life. I don't have any wisdom, but if I did, pretend I did, at this time and space in my life, for anyone that's maybe wanting something of use, is that stuff can change in a heartbeat. So, I hope all is well with everyone, but it can change. So like, I can't. I mean, they say, and it's probably true, the most life value points you get are by helping others. But if something is so screwed up, at least your perception of it is so screwed up that you can't even figure out how to help yourself with something, you're of no use to anyone else. So yeah, it's like, no use to myself, and I'm no use to anyone else. This sounds really depressing, and I don't mean it that way. Matter of factly, like, man, you got to put on your oxygen mask first before you can help others put theirs on. And it's like, where's the fucking oxygen mask? I get it. Tell me where it is. How do I put it on? It's like, you just end up being and feeling like a flailing idiot. And if you don't, I don't know, it's just so, it's crazy, man. Like, I don't know, it's like a year and a half before someone would actually hands-on, like multiple appointments before someone would actually hands-on examine exactly where I said the problem was and exactly what I did. And it took me more than a year to actually get someone to hands-on examine me, like take my shirt off, turn around, put your friggin' hands on me, and try to understand what it is I'm telling you. Not until, like, I think more than a year and a half ago. And it was like in the last 5 minutes of a half an hour appointment when I was just like, I was ready to flip out. This was a physician's assistant. I guess I found out later she was a doctor in Eastern Europe somewhere, and now she lives here, and now she's a physician's assistant anyway, which is not a knock against that. Which maybe I shouldn't even have said that. But she's like looking at oh my God, looking at my x-rays and MRI and saying, well, you have curvature of the spine, and you have like this problem down at the T6-7 and this and that, and I'm like, it's like in the last 5 minutes of the half an hour appointment, I'm like I almost yelled. I'm just like, you're not listening to me. All that stuff you're listening, if you took anyone at 62 and you did an MRI of their spine and an x-ray of their spine, you would find something wrong with it. But if those things that are wrong with it are not a problem, they're not a problem. So I'm like, those things that you're mentioning have never been and are not a problem to me. Maybe to some degree they exist, but they're not the problem. Would you please look at the T123 area? That's the problem. And she said, well, what do you want me to do? And I said, I know I spoke it, but in my mind I was yelling at her, but I know I spoke it calmly in words. Would you let me take my shirt off, turn around, and have you actually look at and hands-on inspect, palpate, examine where I'm telling you the problem is and what I did to it. And she said, well, okay. So I took off my shirt, turned around, and she started doing that. And she has her hands on that part of the spine, and she goes, oh yeah, that doesn't look right. And part of me was like relief, like, okay, someone actually examined me. And part of me was like, are you fucking kidding me? Nobody would hear me or examine me. They just pass you on. Actually, the very first nurse practitioner, when I got there, she examined me briefly, and she said, I'm not sure what it is. I'm gonna have you go see a neurologist. So it's just so we start from potentially most dangerous. Go see a neurologist. And I went to a neurologist and went in his office and told him everything that happened, everything, exactly how it happened, what it was, what I was feeling, where it was, and all that. And he had the MRI and X-rays in his hand. He's sitting there in front of me, I'm sitting there on the edge of the examination table or whatever, but with my clothes on and just sitting there, and like he's in the chair looking at me away. And I'm explaining it to him. I'm like in my head thinking like, okay, this is the point at which you're going to actually examine me, right? And then like it reached the point where he was saying, and then I was realizing that, hey, he's not even going to examine me. And I asked him, I said, this is all that, this is my situation, and I fear that ultimately it could become a really serious, dangerous thing. Aren't you going to actually examine me? And he said, no. He said, no, I don't need to. He said, you'll be all right. Physical therapy will take care of this. And I'm like, for real? You're not going to examine me? They said, no, you'll be fine. Physical therapy will take care of this. And I literally I started to well up and cry because I was like so relieved that, okay, good, this isn't this isn't going to be like super serious. And he said, so go to the whatever 8 weeks of it, and if there's a problem, get back in touch with me. And I did the 8 weeks, and it wasn't resolved. I was getting stronger and more flexible, but I knew I would, because I had stopped exercising for fear of making it worse. I lost my train of thought. And flexibility wise, so I was more flexible, but I've always been flexible. I was only more flexible because it's okay, I'm doing something. And I was a little bit stronger because I'm actually exercising, but I wasn't like weak or anything. But every single week I said, yeah, I'm noticing that, but I'm feeling the exact same negative pain, same situation. It's not fixing the problem. And she assured me at the end of the 8, you just need more physical therapy. And at the end of the 8 weeks, they put in it for 6 more weeks. And I did that, and it's like same thing. And I'm like, what the hell? Every single time I'm like, no, this is like, it. I guess it wasn't getting worse at that point, but it wasn't getting better at all. When it was just like not good, and it would vary throughout the day, and it would be terrible in the morning. And I didn't know what it was. And her bottom line. Oh, and so then she was going to after the 6 weeks, they wanted to extend it for even more. So I got back in touch with the VA to try to actually after the first 8, I tried to get back to the neurologist, because he said if it's not fixed by then, get back in contact with him. And I tried to get back in contact with him, and he and his partner no longer existed within the system. So that's part of the reason why the physical therapy just continued, because the physical therapist's whole point was that what's going to fix it is strengthening your muscles. That will pull things back into order, and flexibility. So that, and then by the end of the 8 weeks, and then the 6 weeks, and then the not being able to have the follow-up neurologist thing because they're gone, that process had to be started over again. I couldn't get more physical therapy because at that point the VA said your time limit has expired. In order to get that, you have to start the whole process over again. And meanwhile, I'm like noticing that it is subtly, progressively getting worse, and I'm like, and now I can't have more physical therapy, and they're leaving me with the message that the whole point is to strengthen your muscles and flexibility. There's nothing we can do. And by this time, I had seen a next nurse practitioner, 2 appointments, neither one of which would she even examine me. One of the appointments, she just oohed and awed about how fantastic my labs were. And I'm like, my labs, I never have a problem with my labs are always perfect. My weight is always perfect. I try to stay healthy. This was an actual physical trauma to that particular spot in my back. It doesn't have to do with my general health. And I'm like, I can't extend the physical therapy now, and I can't see what can I do? And I asked her, what about chiropractors? Is that a possible thing? Like, I have no experience in that, and so I'm asking her, and her immediate and full stop answer was, VA won't approve that anyway. And so I'm like, what do I do? And then that's just like, then start the paperwork all over again to get a follow-up neurology appointment, but it would be with another neurologist that isn't going to be comparing it, but so then that, and then you set up for the weeks and weeks in advance to get the next appointment. Meanwhile, I'm like suffering to the point where one day I actually went to the emergency room because I thought I was going to pass out while I was driving, so I just drove to the emergency room. And meanwhile, through all this, all the muscles in my back were just totally tense, which I found out, which I think I concluded way later, that they were tensed up because my ligament was injured, and then muscles tense up to try to protect injured areas. So like half my physical therapy was the physical therapist trying to loosen up those muscles, and I'm like, but what about the spot that's fucked up? So, and each time you see someone, you have to retell the story. And they're wanting to just get you on to the next person. They don't want to hear you. So it's like you're trying to it's just like. So that second appointment with the second nurse practitioner, so that was a third nurse practitioner appointment, two of which with that same person were just totally useless. She would not examine me. She wouldn't do anything except pass me on. And she said, no, even if chiropractor was a possibility, the VA won't approve it anyway. So at that point, I was like, now I'm just fucked, feeling like my situation's getting worse. I don't know what to do. It's weeks and weeks and weeks off for the follow-up neurologist appointment, which is a follow-up to the which is essentially will be like a new appointment because they're not going to know shit. And when I finally got that appointment, before I made the appointment, and that's outside the system because I'm where I am, before I even made the appointment, I confirmed with that neurologist and their office that if and when they see me, they're actually going to hands-on examine me. Right, yes, and my MRI, not just the report, but the images that I have, the neurologist is going to be able to while I'm there, view that and explain that, right? And right. Well, ultimately with that, it was a total waste of a couple months waiting, and a waste of he wouldn't examine me until I quietly yelled at him, "How you doing?" But that's on down the line. So anyway, but even before that, when it was like left at like I'll just suffer and wait, without knowing what's going on until that next neurology appointment, I, with my own money, saw a chiropractor, and I didn't know anything about chiropractors. The nurse practitioner didn't say chiropractors are bad per se. She just said that the VA wouldn't do it. So I thought, well, okay, I'll pay for it. I don't care. I'll pay for it myself. I need some kind of answers. And I had never been to a chiropractor. And a short story on that is I went to a chiropractor for a week, and she made it way worse. And it's like that's a whole system. If you don't know it takes you. Not just the first appointment to figure it out, it's like back to this, like teachers and parents and all that. Someone that has the power, and a chiropractor that's seeing someone that has never seen a chiropractor has the power. And I stupidly even like told her I don't know anything about chiropractors. I don't know if I should be seeing you, but I'm like, I don't know what my situation is. So like here, I explained to her the whole thing again. It's like it's that particular spot on my back, and like several appointments within a week, and it's like she's like messing with my neck and my lower back and my hips and like all this, and each time she does that, it's like it's arrogantly foisted upon you. You don't know it's happening until it's happening. And like each time that happens, like, wait, this isn't, wait. So it like literally took me a week to realize that she's just fucking me over. And you know, like part of her entry thing was like get the full history, and like she was being real like comprehensive and methodical and blah 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 blah. And like, okay, well that seems good. But then a clue for me, which I'm me in the situation. I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm just trying to diligently, responsibly figure out my situation, but I don't understand it. And she's like, well, with chiropractic, it's like you got to fix the problems around the problem. And there's usually, it's probably going to take at least 12 appointments. And there's usually, before it gets better, it's probably going to seem like it's getting worse, but then it gets better. And so I'm like, like that wasn't the main point, but that was a point within the first couple meetings. So that automatically makes you feel like, well, okay, I'm going to try and be patient for the first few sessions because I'm expecting that that it might get a little worse or before it gets better, but then it's going to get better. And she's like, it wasn't getting better. And I was realizing that she was just fucking me over. Another clue was like, I don't know, I was sitting on the table and like she put me on this machine that's like cranking me around, and I'm like, wait. And like each one of these things, it's like, yeah, you learn it right after you do it, but if there's half a dozen different things and you're totally ignorant to the process and you're trying to have some trust in the power person, it takes you going through each of those things to realize that wait a minute, and then when several of them add up together, then it's like, okay, yeah, all right, yeah, I have to be my own hard-ass advocate and like put my foot down and say, you're fucking me over, no offense. And another clue, like I said, this is a stupid little clue, but like one of the appointments, she was like sitting in front of me, and I was like on the table, whatever, sitting there, and I was just like explaining something. I said something like, well, last night I was in bed and I adjusted my back, and I was just like saying it from my point of view of like, I adjust my back from a non-chiropractic person. They use the word adjust. So when I said like I was sitting in bed and like I adjusted my back and trying to explain to her like the effect of turning my back, and she like got these blistered eyeballs, stared right into me and said, "You cannot adjust yourself. That's not possible." And I'm like, holy fuck, what? Why is this person jumping on me? I just said like I was sitting in bed and I adjusted my back, and she's like pouncing on me for that. So like she arrogantly thought I meant that I was a chiropractor adjusting my back, like a chiropractor adjusts. And I'm like, that was like, I don't know, the third appointment or something. Like that's another clue, flag, like this woman is she's an arrogant power tripper taking advantage of me. And this has to do with my health. And not only my health, but like potentially life-changing health. So, no, I'm not going to do anything bad to her. No, I don't wish anything bad on her. But man, she's evil. She's... there's a bike down the hill. That's over by Point Magoo. So you can tell this is a military helicopter coming. Which isn't, I don't mean that as a negative. maybe it isn't. Maybe it's not even as powerful. I'm just like trigger sensitized. No, I think it is. I think it's a government version of one. That one blue stripe is. Yeah, so I saw her and she fucked up my back. I'm convinced she made it worse. If I had time, money, and inclination, I would sue the hell out of her. But I don't have the time, money, inclination, or life to do that, and I'm not that kind of person anyway. But it's like, I feel like writing bad reviews, but that doesn't do me any good, and that also that doesn't do anything. So anyway, at the end of that week, I get this call from the VA. Nurse practitioner saying you've gotten approval for to see a chiropractor. I'm like, what? I didn't put in for any chiropractor through the VA. The nurse practitioner said it wasn't even possible. So the nurse practitioner, after she said it's not even possible, she put in for it anyway. And it got approved. So then I'm like, I've seen this the one I saw for 5 or 6 sessions who fucked me up. And I'm like right at the point where I'm stopping her, and right at that point I get this call that now a VA approved one is available, is we can do that. So I'm like, hell no, I don't want to see another chiropractor. But then I thought, well, it's already lined up, paid for, whatever. So I saw a different chiropractor in Thousand Oaks. I told him the whole story, and he actually had worked with a number of military people, which that's a thing too, is that this community care, it's like part of it is, I guess, part of it's good, but most of it's bad because it's about money. People want to make money. But he was a good guy. I told him the whole thing. I said, no, I don't want you to adjust me. I don't want you to do anything harsh at all. Whatever you do to me, it's going to be tender, nice, easy. I'm just seeing if you can help me figure out my problem. And I saw him two or three times. And again, at this point, I don't know it's a torn ligament. I think it's just like something's out of whack. And he couldn't tell just by feeling that it was a torn ligament. And what he didn't really do adjustments. He did like a real subtle thing, and did a traction thing and put this vibrating cold or hot. Was it cold or hot? I don't remember. I think there's both on the this and that. And after 2 sessions, I just said, it's not helping me figure out anything. He said, yeah, it doesn't always help. Chiropractic isn't always the answer. So he was real good. But then I saw, I'm making a saga of this. But then I saw that there's this machine, kind of a pulsating drill type tool that certain chiropractors have, that are supposed to be able to make adjustments, but it's not in an aggressive hands-on way. It's like a real pointed with that tool right on the spot that would help the spot where the problem is. So if it was possible to adjust, it's more like this pulsating that if it's going to shift, it helps it shift, but it's not like a hands-on wrench your whole back whatever thing. And so I actually paid for that 2 times to see, and only certain chiropractors have that tool. So I was like, might this work? And he said, well, it might. I might not. Might not. And I said, well, let's try it. And it seemed a little better at first, but part of the thing about when you see doctors or all that kind of stuff is you don't necessarily know what's making you feel better or worse. So the first time it seemed like, I don't know, maybe it feels a little better. So let's try it a second time. How's it going? So it was the same thing second time, and after the second time, it was like, no, it didn't help. But also, I was just like, no, let's not do any more of that. And then it was just like, wait for that neurologist follow-up appointment, which was for a different neurologist out of the VA system because it's community care, that system. And like I told you, I had lined up that confirmed that when they saw me, the dude was going to actually examine me and actually look at the images and that. And I got to the appointment. I got in there, sat on the table, and I'm like, I have the MRI report and I have the images, and they said you were going to be able to look at them and explain them to me and examine me, and you haven't done either. So he's like, it's like I'm like twisting his arm to have him examine me. And the way he examined me, now I've been on many neurologist appointments with my mom, so I've seen neurologists do like this basic exam that they do, and it's stupid. You know, it's like, yeah, if you really have a problem, if you're 85 and really have a problem, like you can't stand up, or your strength is so low that you can't like do anything, it's like it measures for that. But if you're of any normalcy at all in your situation, you pass the test. You know, it's like grab my finger. I see your grip. Yeah, you can grip. So therefore your back's fine. No, and I'm like, no, I don't. They told me that you were going to examine my back, the spot exactly where it was, and listen to my story and all that. That you weren't going to give me like this basic, I can't think of the word of it. This basic, tell me the word, cursory, dumbass little test. You know, like that I don't even need to take my shirt off for. So I made him examine me. I turned around and he's like, oh yeah, that's not right. And I'm just like, well, what is it? And he's like, I don't know. I'm a neurologist. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing at this appointment then? Why did the nurse practitioner send me back to this? Why didn't she send me to whoever the hell I was supposed to see? And I'm like, well, who do you think I should see? And he's like, well, I don't know. You should go back and see your primary care physician. And I'm like, they told me to see you. So in your opinion, like, what kind of doctor should be seeing me? And he's like, well, maybe more of a, I forget the word for it, muscle and bone person. Muscular skeletal, So then I have to make another appointment to see the nurse practitioner to like, now what do I do? And that's finally when I had that. No, actually, that's when I thought I was going to see the same nurse practitioner that I saw 2 times, and the VA called me the day before and said, well, it's going to be with a different person. It's going to be with this physician's assistant. What's her name? And part of me was like, yes, because I was going to throw a fit if I had to see the same one over again. And so I was like, yeah, they're going to get it. And I saw that person. That's what I told you before. Same thing. Like I told the whole story, and she's looking at the MRI report and saying like, well, you have this, and that. And I'm like, no. Any 61-year-old man is going to have something that shows up. That doesn't mean that it's a problem. None of that little piddly shit is a problem. Look at the T123 area. Is there anything there? And yes, like there. And like, and she's like, she's going over stuff and like not examining me. And I'm like, you're not getting it. You're not fucking getting it. That's what I was thinking, and I was calmly trying to get that point across, and she finally said, well, what do you want me to do? I said, I want you to let me take my shirt. Let me stand up, turn around, take my shirt off, and have you actually put your hands on me and examine the spot. And that's when she did and said, oh, yeah, that's not right. And that's when she said she'll put in an order with the VA for you to see this muscular skeletal whatever person, that it should probably have to do with that. And I'm like, so it's taking me a year and a half fucking to figure this out, and I'm the one that has to figure out that it's gotten to the point where I actually feel my spine back there, where I can actually feel that, oh, like there's a ligament that goes over all the other bumps, but for some reason now it's at the point where there's nothing crossing over those two bumps. And so it's like I'm way too flexible there. I feel like I'm falling on my ass. I have no stability. Yeah, I can do what normal people that don't do anything can do. I can grocery shop and watch TV and take a neighborhood walk, but that's not me. Can you fucking help me? So then you're like, yeah, they put in an order for it. And then it's like, yeah, you go home and you wait another week or two to get the phone call that says we're going to set up an appointment. And then so I get the call and it's like, so yes, it's been approved and you qualify to see this person. This person, since you're far enough away from an actual VA, not community care, but like an actual the center, like in LA, the big VA, since you're far enough away from it, you qualify to see community care outside the system. You just have to, that just has to get lined up. And I'm like, fuck no, I'm not seeing outside the system. I want to see someone inside the system. And it's like, well, it's okay. Well, to do that, then it's like the VA and not. See, this is how it winds me up. Not the one. It's Santa Monica, but it's the one in the valley, in Sepulveda in the valley. It's another big VA thing that has like specialists and all that. And I say, yeah, that's the one instead of seeing the community care one, that like maybe it's a 2 or 3 week wait. It's like my experience shows me that not only are they not going to tell me anything, but they're going to fuck up my records because they don't pass the records on. So everything gets fucked up, and you don't get any resolution or a clue about what the hell's going on anyway. So I'm like, no, I want to see someone in the system. I don't care, whatever, as soon as possible. So it's like 2 months, a 2-month wait to get an appointment. So yeah, meanwhile, up until the start of that, I was left with the information of physical therapists saying what you should do is you need to strengthen the muscles and flexibility. So I'm like working hard on that, and I made things worse because it doesn't, if the ligament is damaged at that one spot and you're strengthening everything else around it, it's not supporting, it's pulling. So like I gradually, so the chiropractor tore it and tore it more, and then when they left me to my own, with the information they left me to do that and on my own to do it, I overdid it and tore it more to the point where it tore all the way across. But it's so gradual that it's like, it's not like one instant thing. It's like now it's reached this point and like, oh my God, what happened? And it's like, and every call you make has to go through LA to get to Oxnard, and every call is like you have to wait for someone to answer. You are caller number 37, and and there's, you are caller number 36. So it might be 10 minutes, it might be 40 minutes to make the call, and if that call isn't successful or if you get cut off, then you have to do it again. And then if it's you're wanting to talk directly with the nurse or the whoever at the Oxnard community VA, it has to go through LA first, but then once they hook you over to the other one, oh no. Okay. Dude. I missed it. Maybe you got a glimpse of it. But a hawk, like, with two little tiny birds scaring away the hawk, flew like directly 20 feet above me. Good story. So just to communicate, it's you have to call and wait your turn, and then they hook you through, and then there's another wait. If you ever get disconnected, you have to start over. And then there's and then if they say, well, we'll call you back by next Wednesday. So I always err on the side of okay, I'll give them till Thursday. So then you call back on Thursday, and they say, well, we don't know yet. So you have to and you had to call them back. You had to go through the same process of waiting and all that. And meanwhile, you're trying to stay sane about your situation and rational and trying to understand it. But it's just Monkey. Is that a mockingbird? I think that's a mockingbird with the white flashes on his wings. And he's going to sit there and do a repertoire, so that might be a clue. Monkey! Oops, what did I do with it? Oops, I flew over there. My battery's low. Thankfully to the hummingbird. And so then meanwhile, so I have a 2 or 3 month wait. Meanwhile, I'm how the hell, by this time I'm realizing that no, I shouldn't be, because I got too flexible. Because when you're the muscles that aren't around that too developed, and then it pulls the muscles that are by it, then it just starts really distorting that system of your body. And then I remember my mom's hospice social worker. When I was taking care of her, the social worker would come once a month, and Mom never wanted anything to do with the social worker other than to say hi. How are you doing? Yeah, I'm fine. But I would then, I don't know, at least half a dozen times talk for an hour with the social worker. And she had said something before Mom died, and knowing what my problem was, but at that I was towards the front end of my problem, so it wasn't as bad or serious. She said that she knew a doctor that works outside the system that has a different approach. So flash forward to a month ago, I called her up, and she gave me that guy's number. And it turns out he's not a doctor; he's a physical therapist, but with lots of experience and blah blah blah. And so I saw him a number of times, and he was different. His approach was better, more mind, body, spirit, general to specific. Train, don't strain, blah blah blah, all that. But still, he didn't get. I don't think he got. He just got the part that it's torn across right there. But when I initially did it, I also damaged above that, and it made the thing more complex. And he was he's really trying to assure me that muscles and tendons can make up for ligaments. And I'm like, sometimes it feels all right, but it doesn't. That just doesn't compute, especially at that part of my body. It's like the intersection of my vertical, horizontal, mind, body, emotion, physical intersection of my being. And like, so you're saying that if that ligament is torn clear across, that the muscles and tendons surrounding we can do in such a way that it will ultimately support it to the point where you'll be fine. It'll be a thing, but you'll just have to like live with it. And I'm like, that sounds good, and it's good when it feels that way, but when it doesn't and isn't, it isn't. And then I'm like 61 years old, so when I'm 70, what am I going to do? I always want to be conscientious and physically active and do what I'm supposed to do, but when I'm 70, I'm going to be a different person than when I'm 61. So like, I just like have to do this mindful routine every single day to like be mindful of it 24 hours a day, every day. And if you're not, it like falls back into the flippy floppy spine, like no stability, even if you're so I stopped seeing him just because I'm getting closer to the appointment in June. I don't know, it's like, so like if I bend forward, when you bend each vertebrae, the space between each vertebrae is supposed to open or close in its, along with all the other ones, to the degree with which the bend is. So if it's a tight bend in one spot, yeah, it's going to bend more there, but still all the other ones are going to bend also. And if it's just a like general bending over, then all the vertebrae are going to like bend and unbend like progressively in the way that they're supposed to. But if there's one ligament between two of the bumps, the spinous processes, that's the bump that you see sticking out on the back. If there's a ligament, and there's as I've learned through research, there's like two ligaments between each one, and then there's one ligament that goes down over all of them, and that's the one that is totally severed. So if that's between T2 and T3 and it's severed clear across there, if you just generally bend, it's going to bend more at that point. So you feel kind of flippy floppy, and then it's also going to mean that all the other ones aren't bending the way they should. And so what he's saying is, if you get your muscles and tendons everywhere else in the way they're supposed to, when you bend like that, they'll cover for the torn ligament. But it just feels like if there, I wonder if I should post this, break it up and post it. It might be worth posting just for others beware, not about this particular situation, but how you doing? About how you never know. And I'm sure many thousands, millions of people have a situation that's comparable to mine but different, and a situation that's similar but not as bad, and a situation that's similar or very different or whatever that's way worse than me. So, which is another thing that is just killing me, is that it's like, I don't want this to be about me. I hate being that guy. the way stuff is posted and all that, this like I could see how someone would see like, oh my god, he's suicidal. Oh my god. It's not that. So just for the record, it's not that. Which is kind of what. Here's a funny side note, dark, stupid humor. A lot of times when you call the VA, for a lot of the time, actually for a big long streak of calls that I made, it's like every single phone call is answered by the recording first, and maybe most of them are that way anyway. Are the first. The greeting by the recording, like when you call, for no matter what it is, the greeting is something like, if you're considering suicide. And it's like, well, I wasn't before, but now I am. I mean, not literally, but like for someone that really has that possible leaning that maybe at the time isn't leaning that way, it sure plants it firmly right from the start into their mind. So it's like, it's just really hard to not get cynical, because then it feels like everybody cares and everyone's concerned, and that's there because they care and they're concerned, but it's also like totally a cover your ass thing. Somebody made that decision to do it that way, and that came down politically and all that. So it's like it's all asses are covered. Yes, Johnny called, and after the call he killed himself, but we had the thing. Dude. I can't read this. Low battery. Like that cigarette butt? That's a crime. It's not punishable by death or anything, but it's like, dude. Or dudette. Why the heck are you putting a cigarette butt on this beautiful county open space area that connects to state, national recreation area? A lot of it pristine. And you're putting a cigarette butt down there? Are you out of your mind? Not that you should put it anywhere else that it shouldn't be, but especially here. Come on now. Maki! Alright. So there you go. Oh, so the way I injured my back, by the way, it was a year into caregiving for my mom, when she was a year into hospice with her, a year into a year and a half of what it ultimately was. And at that point, so a year into it, I was like, not complaining, but just matter-of-factly delirious and exhausted. But both she and I and the hospice team had the routine. It was down. It was just included delirium and exhaustion. But if the routine's down, I'm low-key, and all I gotta do is just, this might last another 6 months or another 6 years. I don't know. It's all okay. I'm just gonna be mellow me and do what I can fitness-wise, in a low-key way. This is before I did this, and I was waiting. I took her to the bathroom, got her set up on the toilet, and then stepped outside into the hall. And while she was in there, I thought like split second thought, oh, it'd be great if I cracked my back. I didn't think it. I just like think it, thought it, and did it in my delirium. And so I backed up against the door jamb and just like thrust backwards and then up. And I thought, oh my God, I did something. And that's when I did it to myself. So I did it to myself. I did it in the door jamb. There's a piece of wood that sticks out. I didn't think about it anyway, let alone consider the little piece of wood that sticks out in the door jamb. So I like slammed myself right back into that, and then back further and rolled up. So it like, and it was right at that spot, the T, right. I didn't know then exactly what, but I would come to find out that like that's the T. Yeah, that's the T123 area, specifically the T23, and then with the T12 above it as a additional, not as bad, but additional complicating factor. So I fucked myself, and then further got fucked by the system and my eagerness to solve my problem with information that was bad. So like, in a way I'm totally at fault, but also it's like I was the fucking patient. It's like parent blaming kid, doctor, nurse blaming patient, teacher blaming student. It's not fair. God, why did you make this happen? I was joking. It's not. It's all about me because it's me, but it's not all about me. Obviously, none of it's about me. I'm just nobody me. I realize that. Maki. He's telling me kindly to be quiet, turn off the thing, so I'm gonna turn it off.